All right. What is up? And welcome to the podcast. I have my friend and mentor over here. His name is Zuby Olesebuka Uduzu, better known by his stage name Zuby. He's a British rapper, influencer, and podcaster. He's received media attention after posting a video of himself on Twitter performing a deadlift of 525 pounds, which is actually no small feat for a man or a woman. And he he did it with a statement saying that he had broken the British women's deadlift record while identifying as a woman. And since then, he has grown significantly. He has close to 800,000 Twitter followers, which is mind-boggling. 340,000 Instagram followers, 117,000 subscribers on YouTube. He influences millions, if not billions, of people across the world with his words and his music. And yes, he's had a very tremendous impact on me as well. I would not be doing what I'm doing right now if it weren't for the mentorship, the friendship, and the support of Zuby. So without further ado, please welcome Zuby to the podcast. Zuby, thanks for coming on, brother. I appreciate it.
Yo, what's up, Dan? Thank you for the introduction, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's also the first time I've had someone attempt to pronounce my full name in an introduction. You were close. It was a decent effort.
Okay. What is it? What is the true pronunciation?
Unzube chuku olisebuka udezwe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I cut it down to Zuby.
Okay. I thought we just kept the end silent. Oh, okay.
All yeah, right. No, it's all good, man. It's all good. It's a tricky one.
I'm gonna practice that one maybe for podcast number 2.
All okay.
Right. Okay. So I actually want to start this off by saying this is one of the most favorite podcast research projects that I've done, because the entire time or half the time I've been listening to your hip hop music and actually listen to your music while I work out, because one of the things I love about it is the fact that you don't curse. It's actually pretty damn positive, very opinionated, and I love the flow. So I'm going to start off with a lyric that of yours that I really thought was super cool, and this off the song "Okay, Dude." And here's the lyric. So I'm working hard to make a milli, baby. Flow is never wheezy. Couple 100,000 fans. It all started with a CD. Used to hustle on the street, and now they see me on TV, going viral like Corona, so they try to quarantine me. Now, this is dope. Okay, so number one, I want to ask you, what was the experience starting your career selling your CDs out of the trunk of your car?
Yeah, sure thing, man. So I studied computer science at Oxford University. I actually fell in love with hip hop many years prior when I was in boarding school in the UK. So from the age of 11 up until the age of 20, I was back and forth between the UK and Saudi Arabia. My family was living in Saudi Arabia. That was the home base. And I was in boarding school and then in university in the UK. I became a hip hop fan when I was 12 or 13 years old. And then when I got to university, I started rapping just for fun. I started doing it as a hobby to begin with, made a couple of tracks, sent them out to my friends, to my family, and got really positive feedback. And then about 10 months into when I started, I put together my first album, which was called Commercial Underground. It was an independent release, just like all my releases have been independent so far. And initially, I mean, this is going back to the MySpace days, so people need to remember this is 2006. This is before Spotify. This is before Apple Music. This is when iTunes was very new. This is when YouTube was just starting. This is when the biggest social media network in the world was MySpace, and I had about 28,000 friends on MySpace. I remember I had a pretty big MySpace following. So initially I thought I was going to get my music out there. I was like, hey, I've got 28,000 people following me on the internet. If like 10% of them buy it, I'm going to sell all these albums. And then I quickly learned that, the conversion rates are not quite that high. And so, when I put out my first album, I actually made just 50 copies to begin with. I made 50 CDs. I made it look proper. I did a little photo shoot. One of my friends took the photo for my first album, got someone to do a little bit of graphic design because I wanted it to look like a CD you could see in a store. And my CD actually ended up being in a few stores. But first of all, I just made 50 copies. I made 50 copies. And in the first week, I sold all of them. I sold them to, first of all, to, my friends and my family members, and to, people in my university and stuff like that. And then I took the money from those 50 and I went back and I made either 100 or 200. Once I'd sold those, I did my first run of 1,000. Now, once I had boxes and boxes of CDs sitting around in my dorm room, I'd exhausted my inner circle. It was like, okay, how do I shift the rest of these? I would have been about 19 years old at this time, and I bought CDs from people on the street before. When I traveled to London or go to different cities, sometimes I'd bump into primarily rappers, independent rappers who would sell their CDs on the street. So I was like, you know what? Let me give this a shot. So I went out into Corn Market Street, it's called. It's the main pedestrianized high street in the city of Oxford in the UK. And I went out there with a backpack. I think I took 10 or 15 CDs my first time. And I think it took me about 40 minutes before I actually approached anybody. So I'm just standing there with my backpack on, looking at people rushing around up and down the street doing their shopping. And I'm like, holy crap, I need to talk to people. Like, how do I do this? And then, I made my first couple approaches, and I think the very first person I ever spoke to stopped. Actually, I think the first person stopped, which is good, because I think it gave me gave me a little bit of encouragement. And I think the third or fourth person I spoke to bought an album. They bought the album for £5. I guess that's around $7, $8 US. And I was like, oh wow, okay, I just sold a CD. If I can sell one, I can sell two. And over the course of a few hours, I emptied out my bag, and I went back very happy. Like, hey, I just sold 15 CDs to complete strangers.
Wow.
And then that summer, I spent most of the summer in London, and I wasn't in London. I was staying nearby London, about 40 minutes out. And I started going into central London to promote and sell my music. Anyone who knows London, if you know the sort of Leicester Square, Piccadilly Circus area, I used to go there. And again, I went out with, I think, again, 15 or 20 CDs to start. And, London is even busier. London's way busier than Oxford is. You've got tourists from all over the world. You've got the Londoners. It's crazy busy, so much stuff happening. So again, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Like, I'm standing there, waiting for like 20 minutes or something before I approach anyone, because it just feels so intimidating. And then, I got into the swing of it, and I started talking. And, once I'd approached a few people, I got into the mood. I started to enjoy it. Yeah, sure. Some people ignored me. Some people were not interested. Some people said no. Some people said yes. Totally fine. But I was like, you know what? I can do this. And I did it. And boom, I sold all 20 CDs. I went back the following day. I brought 25 out. Bang! I sold them all. I came back the next day. I brought 30 out. And I spent that summer. I spent several weeks of that summer. This would have been, let me say, summer either 2006 or 2007. I think 2006. And that is how I started selling CDs by the hundreds to begin with. Not 100 every single day, but on a good day, I was moving 30 to 40 CDs on a good day. And so that was really what sort of sparked that idea, which was what my main hustle became for the next several years. So I graduated university in 2007. I took a year out and I did my music full time for 1 year. So before I graduated, I already had a job offer, but I told the company, give me 1 year. I want to take a year out, do my music full time for 1 year. I graduated early too. I was only 20 years old when I graduated. So there wasn't this sort of rush that I need to go into the corporate world. So in 2008, I released my second album. It was called The Unknown Celebrity. So I was then going out there with my 2 CDs, and I started traveling all over the UK. I started getting, jumping on trains and going to this city and going to that city. And just doing this, repeating this in different cities, going out there wherever the pedestrianized high street was and talking to strangers all day long from, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., whenever the sun would go down. And I'd have good days, I'd have bad days, I'd have amazing days, I'd have terrible days, positive encounters, negative encounters. But over the course of time, up until this point, I've probably, spoken to over 500,000 people.
Yeah.
And from that point, to kind of give more of the full story, in late 2008, I moved to London and I started working in the corporate world. I actually used to be a management consultant, so I worked with a big consultancy firm. And from 2008 to 2011, I was doing my music on the side. In 2010, I released an EP called How I Feel. So that was my third release. And I was juggling these two careers at once. I was doing gigs here and there. And I was also, trying to proceed up this corporate ladder. And then in early 2011, due to a host of reasons, I made a decision by the end of that year, I wanted to be a full-time rapper. So I made that decision. And in September 2011, I handed in my notice and I left my job.
Wow.
And I went out into the big, scary world to become a full-time independent musician, which some people thought was crazy, but to me, it completely made sense. And I was certain I would achieve some level of success. Didn't know what it would look like, how long it would take, what direction I'd go, but I was like, all right, I know how to do this. So I went out, I bought my van, which is now known as the Zuby tank. It's a van, Volkswagen Transporter. I got it wrapped in my color of purple. I put my logo on it. And this is when the true hustle season began. So from 2011 all the way to, super hustle season really goes from 2011 to 2018. But from 2011 to 2014, I was primarily just doing the street hustle. I was traveling all over the UK, all different cities, north, south, east, west, all the way up to Scotland, going to Wales. I went to the Isle of Wight. I went to the East Anglia. I was going all over the country. I've been at every town, every city, talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people and selling thousands and thousands of albums. In 2014, I upgraded the hustle and I started doing pop-up shops with my friend Shouda, who's also an independent rapper from London. And it was called the Blue and Purple Store. And we started doing pop-up shops. Those little kiosks you get when you're in shopping malls. So we had one of those. So we'd sell our music, our merchandise, T-shirts, hats, hoodies, wristbands, all that stuff. So instead of being out there on the street, which we'd done for many years in all sorts of weather, we all know UK weather's not great. So we'd be out there in the snow, in the rain, in the sun, all kinds of weather. And then finally, we upgraded and moved indoors. And from 2014 to 2018, once a month, we would do the pop-up shop in a different city. So from 2014 to 2018, that was my primary source of income. It was selling the music, selling the merchandise like that.
Oh, boy.
And then 2019, so this leads up to early 2019, which is where I really reached this turning point. In the introduction, you mentioned this viral tweet I had, which blew up, and that was posted on February 26, 2019. I was actually at my pop-up shop when I posted that. It was early. It was morning at the pop-up shop. The mall had just opened. I was standing there. I was bored. 9 a.m. You're not getting any customers at 9 a.m. And I was scrolling through my Twitter feed, and I came across a couple of silly stories, and I thought, I wonder what the British women's deadlift record is. And I just Google searched it, and then I had this video of my phone of me from one of my training sessions doing a 230 kilo deadlift. And I just, like I do with my other tweets, I just fired it off the hip. I was just like, hey, I keep hearing about how biological men have no strength advantage over women. Watch me destroy the British women's deadlift record without trying. P.S. I identified as a woman whilst lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot. I just put that out there, not thinking much of it. Next thing I know, Dan, I'm looking at my phone and I don't know what I've done, but I know I've done something because this video has reached 10,000 views in 10 minutes and it's starting to get retweeted all over the world. You have to remember when I posted that, I had 18,000 followers on Twitter at the time. So, and it had taken me 10 years. It had taken me 10 years to reach that 18,000. And then suddenly, for something that has nothing to do with my music, nothing to do with the main work I've been doing, all of a sudden, this video is going crazy. Within a couple hours, it's hit 100,000 views. I go to bed that night, 300,000. I wake up in the morning, 500,000. It keeps going. The next few days, it's just, this thing's just, it takes on this life of its own. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm supposed to be working at my shop and I'm all distracted, like on the internet, like what's going on here, right? Like, I don't even know what to do at this point. And the video just went further and further. It gets shared by this person and that person, and then so many people in the USA. It starts going viral in the USA, and then a week or two later, Joe Rogan. I wake up one morning and everyone's like, "Yo, Joe Rogan just mentioned you on his podcast." Joe Rogan. I was like, "What are you guys talking about? Like, what's going on?" And then I check out his latest episode, and he's watching the video. He's watching the video on his podcast, and he shouts me up. I go on Twitter. He sent me a DM, and he's like, "Brother, that's the funniest thing I've seen all year. Like, I love what you're doing, whatever." And I'm just like, "Yo, this is crazy." And I just started getting all these people reaching out to me. And then in late 2019, I did I got the opportunity to go out to the USA, and that's when I had my first appearance on Joe Rogan. Did a big interview with Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, like all these different media figures in the US and also in the UK as well. And so 2019 is the year where everything really just started to catch on fire in terms of people knowing the name Zuby and having some familiarity with what I'm doing. So I don't know if I've ever shared that full story on like a podcast before, but that's a timeline from 2006 to 2019. That 13-year period. That's how that all played out. And then obviously from then up until now, that's been a whole different story.
Yeah, because when people look at your Twitter, they just think of Zuby, the Twitter guy, right? That's like the first thing they think about. And
Yeah.
then they're like, okay, well, you just lucked out or whatever. But we know from Twitter that there is no such thing as luck. And then I do think that the hustle that you put in by talking to hundreds of thousands of people before all this stuff even happened, that actually sets you up
Mm-hmm.
to continue on the momentum that you got from that particular tweet. Because most people, when they see a tweet like that or they put out a tweet like that, they just stop. Right? It's not
Yeah.
in their mentality. But for you, that was actually like a launching phase for you, out of all the
Mm-hmm.
work that you've done. Now,
Yeah,
sorry, go
no,
ahead.
it was, and I think there's two interesting points on that. I think the first is that I was able to hold people's attention because there was more to me than that one single tweet, right?
Mm,
People were then able to go and see, oh, he's okay, he's cool, he's got music, and I'd started my podcast by then. I was doing some type of just general social commentary in the way that I do it now. So people came through that video. A lot of people discovered me through that, but then they stuck around because they were like, oh wait, okay, this isn't just a one-off funny tweet. This person is actually very interesting. And then I was able to snowball that into something bigger.
mm,
The second part of it that's funny is I think the tweet itself and the video is actually quite a good metaphor because it takes a long time to be able to lift that weight.
mm,
So some people might just see it and be like, oh, that's just one tweet. That's a 9-second video. Anyone could have done that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you lift that weight. You post that video, right?
mm,
How many years go into it? So you see the tip of the iceberg. And for someone who isn't aware of this whole story, it can just look like, oh, wow, someone, this guy just walked up and did that thing. But I think it's actually quite an interesting metaphor of how people kind of see that surface level,
yeah.
but they don't see all the work and all the time and all the years that went into making it possible.
Holy crap, man! That dude, I've never heard that story before. From all the research I've done, I've never heard that story before.
Mm-hmm.
And you're totally right in the sense that a lot of people see the results, but they don't necessarily see the hours of work that get put into it. And number one, like, dude, you talk to like 100,000 people or more than 100,000 people. That is like just an eradication of
Yeah.
fear of public speaking already. Just talking
Yeah.
to that many people.
I'd say about 500,000
Oh
if
my
I were to
God.
estimate. Yeah. I mean, I sold over 30,000 albums hand to hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to sell 30,000 albums, Yeah, you're talking to somewhere between 300,000 and 500,000 people.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I do want to take us a little bit back because I've heard about this story on Wikipedia. And I want to just see what your feelings were around this because I feel like it's actually a pretty important part of your story, which is, back in, I believe it was 2008, you're misidentified and you're arrested
Mm.
at gunpoint in Bournemouth at the railway station. And you had people, or basically cops all over you, guns on you. Uh, was that a particular turning point in your life at all, or what exactly have you learned from being in a situation like that? Because when I
Mm.
think about it, it's like, I can't even imagine that shit happening to me.
Yeah, it was wild, man. I'd actually just been out promoting my music in a city where I used to live, which is called Southampton, which is about 30, 40 miles from Bournemouth, where I was living at the time. And I got a train back, home, and I had my backpack on that I had my flyers and my CDs and stuff in, and I came out the train, and I saw one of my friends and said hey to him, and I then hear police shouting. Right, you have to remember in the UK the normal police are not armed,
Mm.
so they have specialist firearm units. So if there's like a terroristic threat or like a firearm threat or something, you'll see like the armed police going around with their carbines, and they'll normally have the dogs and stuff with them. And so I noticed a bunch of police at the station, and then so I'm looking up, seeing what's going on, like there's some commotion, and then I get forcefully pushed backwards by one of the police officers, and I look up and I've got like one, two, three, four, five guns just trained on me, right? And
Wow.
I'm like, whoa, like what is going, and they're shouting, get down on the floor, get down on the floor, put your hands up. So I just comply. I have no idea what's going on, right? Like I've literally just stepped off the train about 7 seconds earlier. Next thing I know, I've got five guns on me, police officers yelling at me to get on the ground. So I just comply, right? I just comply. I have no idea what's going on. It doesn't even feel real. It feels very surreal because none of this makes any sense. And they approach me, they handcuff me, tell me I'm under arrest for a Section 1 firearm incident, which doesn't mean anything to me. They take me off to this room, and they start asking me all these questions and interrogating me, and I have no idea what is going on, right? Like just it was one of the weird. It's probably the weirdest thing I've ever experienced because I have no idea what's going on. They're talking about some firearm incident that happened in another city, which is called Basingstoke. I hadn't even been to that city that day, and needless to say, I have not accosted anybody with a handgun. And so they're saying all this stuff, and I'm very confused. Like what was going through my mind was I was very confused, and I had no idea what they were talking about. At the same time, I was surprisingly calm because I knew I hadn't done anything, right? So I didn't know who they thought I was and what they thought I'd done, but I knew I've got a completely innocent conscience, right? It's like I haven't done anything. So I don't know how long this is going to take or whatever, but I don't really need to worry about anything because I've got nothing to hide here, right?
Mm.
Um, and they're asking me all these questions. I'm telling them, I'm like, I've been in Southampton all day. I haven't even been to Basingstoke today. You can look at my train ticket. My train ticket is from Southampton to Bournemouth. I haven't been to Basingstoke. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I don't know who you think I am. This is who I am. I'm Zuby. I graduated from Oxford University last year. I got a degree in computer science. I'm an independent rapper. I've been in Southampton promoting my music. So I'm just telling them about myself, right?
Mm.
And I can even see in some of them, I think like they're kind of like, crap, I think we got the right, like they're like, I don't think this is the right guy. And then, but I think once they start the arrest procedure, they kind of have to go through with it until you get to the station. So, I get put into a cop car. I'm sitting in the cop car with these two police officers, and I'm literally sitting there in handcuffs, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm some kind of crime lord or something. And they're still asking me questions, and I can see at this point that the guys in the car, the guys in the car are really like doubting that I'm the right person because they're like, this person does not seem like the kind of you know me, man. Like I'm a very polite, like calm, and I'm telling them like, yeah, I just got my degree from Oxford. I'm doing this and that. They're like, this doesn't sound like the kind of dude who would chase someone around a city with a firearm. And then I got to the station, still in handcuffs, and I just gave him like a couple details that they asked for, and then I'm standing there for about 8-10 minutes, and then they come out and they're like, "We're so sorry. It was mistaken identity. We got the wrong person. Da da da." And yeah, that was that. So it was a weird experience, man. It was very strange. And then the aftermath was very weird as well, because it made national news in the UK. So I was on the front cover of multiple newspapers the following day.
Wow.
And there's police. There's media vans outside the house, and people keep ringing the phone and wanting to talk to me and interview me on this and that, and everyone's like, it was this like huge story. And it was weird because I also didn't really want that attention. Like, I didn't want to be the guy who's known for being arrested at gunpoint by accident by police. Some people, of course, were trying to spin it into some people were trying to, this, if you remember, this was also the time when like there was a lot of talk about like terrorism and stuff. So some people were trying to spin it that, oh, they thought I was a terrorist or something, which actually didn't turn out to be the case. Other people were, of course, trying to play the racial angle and saying, this is proof of, the systemic racism in the police, and, this and that. And some people kind of wanted me to play the whole like victim narrative and, come out there on TV and condemn the police. But I was like, you know what? I don't even know what happened. Like, wait for the investigation. They're gonna do an investigation. It's gonna take a few months, and let me not jump to 5 million conclusions, and let me not be the mouthpiece of somebody who's got some agenda. I just took it in my stride, man. I took it in my stride. It was weird. I kind of let the media hype pass over. I think I only did like 2 interviews or something, and I was like, yeah, I've kind of said what I wanted to say. I don't want to drag this thing out forever. If you guys want to talk to me about my music, then let's talk about my music. But this isn't what I want my whole story or my legacy to be, kind of thing. This is just some freak accident that basically happened.
How do you actually do that? Because you have this sense of calm that
Mm,
not a lot of people have. And you've actually held yourself back from turning yourself into a victim, from
mm.
using this as even like a part of your story, and knowing exactly like where you want to head. You had a vision for where you want to go. Where does this like sense of purpose and calm come from?
It's a good question, man. It's a tricky one to answer, because I think it's hard for us to any of us to know exactly why we are the way we are.
Mm,
I think it's a combination of things. Some of it will just be like genetic, like my personality type. I'm a very, very low, ultra low neurotic
mm,
individual, which means I'm far less sensitive to negative emotions like fear and anxiety and worry, and anger, compared to most people. I've got a very just even keeled temperament.
yeah.
I mean, I've been like that forever. I ask my parents, I'm like, have I always been that way? And they're like, yeah, even as a child, I wasn't. Apparently, I was a pretty easy, as far as babies and children go. I was a pretty easy one to deal with. Right, I was
Mm,
just kind of calm, um, relatively. I think a
yeah.
baby can only be so calm.
Are your parents like
Um,
that at all?
my dad, very much,
Okay.
very, very much. My mom more moderate, but my dad's all. I've probably seen my dad angry twice,
Mm,
like noticeably angry. And I'm very similar like that. So I can be angry. I can be worried. I can be concerned, but I can also be super happy. But I kind of come across the same way regardless. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
like even if I'm not doing great, like most people wouldn't necessarily notice, because I don't like wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm not that super emotional person. I don't snap on people. I don't yell.
Yeah.
I'm just always, if you imagine like a sound wave, you've got some people, their frequencies are like, it's all like that. With me, it's just kind of like,
Mm,
just kind of slightly, it's just very, slightly modulates. So I think some of it is just my personality. And then I think some of it as well is just how I have trained myself and my emotions. I mean, I was telling you about, dude, go out there on the street and talk to 300,000 people. talk to 300,000 strangers and try to promote yourself to them and sell yourself to them, you will learn how to manage your emotions. You know, like you'll learn because you'll have super highs. You'll have times where, you know, when I was out there on the street, I mean, I had some amazing moments. Like I had ones where, man, I had days where I'd approach one person and I'd empty my entire backpack off talking to one person, right?
Yeah.
I bump into a group of tourists from like France or Germany or whatever, and they buy 30 CDs. Like this has happened, right? Like I've been in the city for half an hour and I need to leave because I've got nothing left to sell, right? And everyone wants to take a photo and everyone's like hype and they want you to sign all the albums. And I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. This is actually why I called my second album The Unknown Celebrity, because like I'd switch between, you know, being totally anonymous and being the celebrity. I still actually kind of experience that now to an even bigger degree because I'm at that weird level where like millions of people know who I am, but most people don't. So depending on where I am and what I'm doing, I can be like totally low key and anonymous, or I can also step into places where it's like, holy crap, that's Zuby, like Zuby's here. And so I kind of experienced a lot of that. But then I also experienced, you know, just being standing around for hours in the rain. No one wants to stop. Nobody's buying anything. You know, people are saying mean things and you can't really do anything. You know what I mean? You're just like, man, people kind of suck. You know, you get those moments as well. So over the course of time, and then with everything else I'm doing, you know, putting in my grind in the gym, you know, all the ups and downs you go through in your life and all of that, I just learned, I guess someone could call it stoicism. I didn't sort of study stoicism specifically, but I just learned how to manage and regulate my emotions and not allow things and people to throw me off my game too much. As you'll know as well, because you're growing very fast on social media, right? You know, hundreds and thousands of people, millions of people are seeing what you're putting out there, and you get all kinds of people, right? You get love, you get all kinds of love, you get super positive feedback, you get people telling you like, man, like you've changed my life, you've helped me to do this, you've helped me do that. Then you get people who are just, you know, complete haters, right? Like just hating, like you acting as if you've done something horrible to them, and they're just saying really nasty, vicious stuff. And then you've got people who are just like trolls and just annoying, and you've got this and you've got that, and you have to be able to just kind of take it in your stride and deal with it. And you know, that's just something I've learned over time. And I think the more popular you get, then the more successful you become. It's something that all that it does is it amplifies. It just continues to grow. So you have to be able to handle it.
I have to go outside and talk to 500,000 people now.
Dude, I'm so glad I did it. Honestly, I'm so glad I did that, Dan,
Yeah.
because I, I feel like I've had a series of lessons, or like I've been through this multi-year course that almost nobody does.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many people I've talked to more people than almost anybody, and like actually talking, not just like saying hi, like, you know, saying hi and like engage. So like the amount that I've just learned about how to communicate with people and body language and how to do this and how to do that, like not just in terms of hard sales. Like, yes, I'm good at sales because like I had to get good at sales, but you also just learn so much about human beings. You develop this type of sixth sense. When I was out on the street or even doing the pop-up shop, one thing people would always ask me is, how do you know who to approach? Because to them, they wouldn't see a pattern, right? They'd see me approaching all these different and they're like, how come you approach that person and not that person? And it's like, you develop this sixth sense of like who is most likely to be open to it. It can be everything from how fast they're walking, who they're with, the expression on their face, the clothes they're wearing. It's not just like I'd approach people who look obviously like they're into hip hop music. It's just like you develop this type of intuition. Or even if it's a group, there might be a group of 5 people, you know, 2 boys, 3 girls, and you know who to talk to. You quickly determine in like a split second, okay, who's the decision maker in this group, and that's the person. So if you're interacting with a group and you're talking to a group, there's like a certain dynamic. There's a dance that goes on there, because you have to get the leader, the influential person on your side. You have to recognize who that is, get them on side, but you also can't give them all the attention. You have to address everybody, make sure everybody in the group feels included. Because if you just talk to one person in a 5-person group, the others are going to drift off and they'll be like, come on, man, let's go.
Hmm.
Right. So you have to introduce yourself to everybody, build a quick little bit of rapport with everybody in the group, keep everybody entertained and interested. And then once you've done all that, then you can even get into what you're actually trying to promote
Hmm.
or what you're actually trying to sell. And you'll have a much higher chance of success. If it's a couple, you approach a couple differently, right? Because you don't want anybody to feel, disrespected, right? There's a man and a woman. I don't want the guy to think, oh, I'm trying to like move on his girl, or like,
Hmm.
you don't want so it's like there's so much going on. You've got old people, I'm talking to, teenagers, right? Honestly, some people are like kids, right? Because you get kids stop, especially with a pop-up shop, you get like 11 and 12-year-olds stopping by because they just see all these hats and t-shirts. They're like, yo, what's this, right? They're there with all their friends. They might even be on scooters. They're there like eating popcorn and candy. And you're talking to like these 10 and 11-year-olds and they've got like all this energy and whatever. And there's like a certain way to address them. And then teenagers are different. And then you get like older people and you get people in their 50s and their 60s. And it's Christmas time and they're looking for a hoodie for their grandchild. And the way you talk to a 65-year-old is not the same way you talk to a 16-year-old. So I learned so much, man. And those are lessons that I'm going to just have throughout my entire life when it comes to communicating with people. Because I think the ability to communicate with people is through different forms, through writing, through speaking, through listening, incredibly powerful.
Hmm. I feel like you should go on a dating podcast and talk about approaching.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and talk about social dynamics. And one of the
Mm.
things that pops out to me is that you did reps, right? It was all
Hmm.
reps inside of the social dynamics and also reps inside of the gym. And I got this question from a couple of my clients because I told them that I was going to interview you, and they were excited. They were just like, okay, 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 can you ask Zuby this? Can you ask Zuby that? So I got to ask you, in regards to reps, what exactly does like your fitness regime look like? What exactly does your nutrition look like? And I know that we're going a little bit weird in a direction here, but people want to know, how exactly does Zuby work himself out, and how exactly do you feed yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. It's changed a lot over the years. So I started out lifting when I was 15. I used to play rugby, so I got into the gym primarily because of that. I wanted to get in better shape and be stronger to be a better rugby player. When I was 15, 16, I didn't really know what I was doing, right? I would just read bodybuilding magazines and
Mm.
try to copy what all these dudes on all this gear and stuff. I didn't know they were all on drugs at the time, but I would try to copy these 2-hour arm blast
Yeah.
workout, or like just way too many sets, way too many reps. I was eating way too much food. Funny fact, I weighed more when I was 16 than I weigh now at 35.
Wow.
Um,
And what
I
do you
was
weigh right now?
sorry.
What's your weight right now?
Right now, about 90 kilos.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I prefer being around 85, but around 90 kilos, 200 pounds on the
Wow.
dot, something like that.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I got up to like 215 or something when I was 16. So, I was a big dude. And, I got strong. Like by the time even at 16, 16, 17, I was pretty jacked. I wasn't lean, but like I was a strong guy. And there were some of my friends who were really into it. So we were just copying the magazines, doing the whole kind of bulking and thinking that if you didn't eat every 2 hours, you'd go catabolic and all that, all that, all that nonsense. And then especially in my late teens, early 20s, I started to learn a little bit more. But fast forward to now, I'm pretty, I've been training for pretty much 20 years now. Um, so I tapped out the vast majority of my natural potential a long time ago, like,
Mm.
14, 15 years ago. I haven't really gotten that much bigger or that much stronger since my early 20s, which is fine. So I primarily just, I don't go like, how do I put this, man? I go hard, but I also recognize it's like, you hit this point of like real diminishing returns. where for me to get significantly stronger than I currently am would take like such a crazy level of effort and precision. And it's not my career, right? I'm not a, I've already reached elite level lifts in certain things, right? Like maybe over the next 2 years, I could, get my deadlift up to like 650 pounds or something, hit his 650 PB, but it's like, what for? Like,
At,
what for,
at
right?
what
Like, I don't,
cost, too, right?
yes. And on at what cost? And so I train about 5 times a week. Something like 3 days on. I don't normally do more than 3 days lifting in a row,
Mm.
2 or 3 days in a row. So I train about 5 times a week. I try to hit everything twice a week. I primarily base my workouts around compound movements. So maybe 70%, 80% compound movements, and then 20, 30% isolation exercises. And I keep my lifting to, 50 minutes, 50 to 60 minutes. I normally bookend cardio on each side. I'll do like 12 to 15 minutes cardio before, 12 to 15 minutes cardio after, normally the elliptical, sometimes the treadmill or whatever else. And I just focus on the training, and I focus on building strength. During the main sort of growth phase, I primarily focused on getting my strength up. That was really my main focus. So I trained more of a powerlifting style than bodybuilding style, although it's a little bit of a hybrid.
Mm.
So that's why I've got strong lifts, because I've trained to be strong, not just to look good or to have a six pack or whatever. I've trained to be strong. So that's really my focus. And in terms of diet, it's also thing is why I travel so much. Like, I don't have a normal life. Like, I don't live anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not just like based in one place. Like, I travel, like I'm going to all these different places and cities and time zones. So I do my best when I'm on the road to maintain, to just do what I can, both in terms of training and in terms of eating. When I'm settled in a place and I'm eating normally, I typically try to have my diet around, I mean, I've got a pretty high caloric intake, about 3,200, 3,300 a day for maintenance. So I've got a little bit of leeway in my diet, more than, people who are less active or might. But I eat about 80% clean
Mm.
and 20%, kind of whatever goes, if it fits your macros. I'm not really, I'm nowhere near as anal about my diet as people would assume that I am. During normal times, like I eat, like I don't pig out. I naturally am drawn to more natural and nutritious foods. So I wouldn't even like want to just sit there and eat tons of Doritos and donuts and
Mm.
pizzas and stuff. But I will eat pizza. I will eat burgers. I will eat, and it also depends on the one. Like, not all pizzas are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, a pizza can be very, very healthy and very nutritious,
Yeah.
or it can be, complete trash. But it depends on who's making it and what's on it. So I'm not yeah, I'm pretty flexible, dude. I'm
Yeah.
I'm pretty flexible as long as I hit certain things. The things that I really, that matter to me are, making sure I get about, approximately the right amount of calories overall. Make sure I'm getting enough protein.
Mm-hmm.
Um, make sure I'm getting enough fruits, fruits and vegetables and just natural and nutritious food. And then outside of that, it's pretty flexible. Like, when I'm settled in one place for a while and I'm not switching time zones, then I'll typically do intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing intermittent fasting, on and off for about 14 years now, way before it became trendy. Um, and if I really want to tighten up, then I'll do that in a more focused way. But that's it's not that interesting. Like, I don't have some fancy, I really don't have some type of fancy diet. I eat 2 or 3 times a day, and I just get enough protein. I get the right amount of calories. I train hard. I hit my 10,000 plus steps a day, and I enjoy my life. And, it works well. If it's like, okay, it's time for me to cut and I want to drop 10 or 15 pounds, then I'll just simply track my calories. Um, but even if I'm dieting, I mean, I diet on 27, 2,800, not even higher. You know, I think last time I cut on like 28, 2,900 calories a day, which might sound ridiculous to
That's
some people,
some people's
but
bulking diet right
yeah.
there. Like,
But like, you know, that's a 400, 500 calorie deficit for me.
wow.
So I can do that fine. And again, just keep training hard, make sure I get in enough protein, and it works for me. You know, it's worth saying that I have tried a lot of different things in the past. You know, when I was in university, I did try the keto thing and I felt terrible, and I lost a lot of strength and I lost a lot of muscle. And I was eating, you know, I've tried dieting as, you know, I used to, again, because sometimes you try to follow what other people are doing and you realize actually this doesn't work, right? I mean, I'd seen something of some bodybuilder who was prepping for, you know, he was dieting on like 1,800 to 2,200 calories, and he actually was a similar body weight to me. And I tried, dude, I felt awful. Like I was in way too big a deficit, right? Like I was in like 1,000 calorie deficit was not sustainable for me. This is when I was in university, so I'm still studying. I'm cycling around all the time. I'm playing rugby, and I'm eating like 2,000 calories. Like terrible idea. Like I felt awful, and I hadn't. I didn't know. Like I was like, am I supposed to feel like this? Like maybe this is just how you feel when you're cutting. And now in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, geez, man, I was really like, I was eating like 1,000 calories too little. So no wonder I felt like crap. No wonder I had brain fog. No wonder my legs felt heavy. I remember I just go to the gym and like everything felt heavy. But yeah, now I much more moderated approach, much more sustainable, and I think that's why I'm able to be so consistent, because I don't kind of burn the candle at both ends. There's times where, you know, you might have a reason you need to go a little bit harder, but I make sure that both in terms of my training and my diet, I can maintain consistently. Even if I'm traveling, even if I'm going to all these random cities, I'll still be in the gym I'll still be training at least 4 times a week. My diet might not be ideal. If I can't do any cooking and I have to eat out all the time or be getting Uber Eats, I'll still make at least decent choices. So, you know, it's not perfect, but it's good enough.
Dude, I feel like that's the healthy way to go about it. So if you're hearing this right now, he doesn't cut out seed oils. He doesn't cut out carbs. He doesn't go carnivore. He basically has an 80-20 approach to the way that he diets. And I feel like a lot of people, they make themselves almost mentally unhealthy with the way that they treat their diets and the way that they treat their bodies. But at the same time, you have to try everything as well. You tried the keto diet, you know that didn't do for you, and also you've been doing the intermittent fasting diet, you know that actually works for you. So you know it's all about
Yeah.
finding out what works. You know, so
Yeah, man. Look,
yeah,
I don't, I'm not a big fan of when, I don't know, diets or even workout routines get too tribal or,
yeah.
you know, political. Even it's like if something works for someone, I ultimately I want people to be healthy. If people are moving and they're exercising and they're getting in shape, dude, yeah, sure, making CrossFit jokes is fun and all that, and we can make little, you know, we can make little jives at each other, you know, for whatever activities people do. But dude, like if someone is doing CrossFit and it works for them and they're getting in shape, I'm not going to be like, yeah, bro, like you shouldn't be doing CrossFit. It's like, no, look, man, if that's what works for you, if going to a Pilates class or doing your hot yoga works for you, like I've never been to a class in my life. I've been going to the gym for 20 years. I've never done a class. For some people, all they do is classes, and it's like, cool, if that's what works for you, that's good. Like I'm kind of a lone wolf. I generally like to just be in there, headphones on, and just doing my thing in my zone. But whatever works, if going with a friend works, if having a personal trainer works, I don't care. If you're in there and you're training, you're lifting and you're exercising and your heart rate is going up, God bless you. Do what works for you. Same with your diet. Like I have no interest in doing a carnivore diet. I'm not interested in doing a plant-based diet. But if it works for you and you feel good and it fits your body and you're getting results, all the power to you. Keep doing it.
Yeah, it can get very, actually it does get very tribal. It becomes
It
like a
does.
religion a
Yeah.
little bit.
It really does.
when
I
yeah.
think we actually live in the age of this is slightly off topic, but
Yeah.
I think we actually might live in the most religious time periods ever. Not the most godly, not the most godly time period, but like I've the amount of religiosity in people's approach to all sorts of different things over the past few years has been off the charts, and that even goes into diet.
Yeah, like people don't realize that they're praying to someone. They're praying to something,
Hmm.
in the way that they actually behave and act. So, I don't know. Like definitely we can go about and talk about that maybe in the next podcast, but I actually do want to get to something that I've been wanting to ask you for a very long time. Because during this time I've been listening to your lyrics, I've been researching by just listening to your music, and I'll tell you right now, I'm going to work out after this. I'm going to be listening to your album while I'm working out because
Awesome.
literally I think that you come out with number one, you do things without swearing, which is not what a lot of rappers actually do. You actually have very thoughtful lyrics about things that are happening right now. And you also have very motivational lyrics. Like, I mean, the song Perseverance to me
Mm,
is one of those things that I just like want to put on repeat over and
sick.
over and over. It just sings to me. So I want to ask you, who were your musical influences growing up? So when you were, back in Oxford, you were listening to hip hop. Who were those guys that first got you on the path to making music?
Yeah, sure thing, man. LL Cool J, Nas, Jay Z, Tech Nine, Kanye West, Mob Deep, 50 Cent. Funnily enough, I like Gangstar. I'd say those are some of my top influences right
Yeah,
there.
you've got amazing taste. Amazing taste.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
what was that a '90s 2000s hip hop influence right
Hmm.
there.
Hmm. Primarily, yeah.
Okay, so here's a follow up question. What do you feel is one of your favorite rap lyrics of all time?
Wow. Ooh, that's a big question, man.
Mm.
Oh boy. I feel like I should have. I feel like I should have like an obvious answer to this, but I'm struggling with this one.
Mm.
Favorite rap lyric, man. Uh, I honestly don't know.
All right, let me ask you
I'm struggling.
this follow up question. Maybe we'll get back to that one.
Okay.
What is your favorite Zuby lyric that you have ever created?
um. Oh, man, these questions are so hard. It's hard when you make a. It's hard when you make a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's like 9 albums worth of things to select from.
yeah.
One of my favorite lyrics. Okay, let me pick one of my favorite lyrics. There's different ones I like for different reasons.
Mm. Yeah, can you pop out just maybe a couple of them that come to
Yeah,
mind?
sure.
Yeah.
So, in my first ever single called "Step Into Me," which I released when I was in university, I had a lyric on there which just a lot of people. It's the lyric where I always knew people would react in the song, whether I was performing it live or I was playing it to someone. Um, and that's I don't think that I'm the best. I'm just in love with myself. So you could call it masturbation because I'm feeling myself. Um, that was just like a funny lyric. Like people always like you could call it masturbation because I'm feeling myself. Like people always
Oh,
would. That just like stuck out to people.
oh,
So that was like my first bar where people were like, ah, yo, like that was sick kind of thing.
ah.
So that's one of them.
Wow.
Um, I mean, I don't think it's actually like my best lyric. It's just one that was quite impactful for whatever reason. Maybe because people have quite puerile senses
It's
of
kind of
humor.
mind blowing a little bit when you hear it. It's like, oh, like
Yeah,
when
it's
you
just
hear it,
one
it's
of
like
those
one of
like,
those moments where you actually watch someone rapping. You're like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you
that's what
start
it's just
screaming.
it's one of those ones. It's kind of like it's one, yeah, it was one of those. Let me think of one that's like a little bit more profound. Um, I really like the entire second verse of my song "Ill." I really like that verse, second verse of Ill. I don't know if I can pick out one single line. And then, hmm, man, I have so many lyrics. I have so many lyrics. Um, I feel like Coming At Ya or Okay Dude probably has those songs have a lyric in there somewhere
Mm.
that'll be one of my favorites. Um, man, I'm not doing well on this.
I
I'm
love
not doing
I
well
love
on this,
stumping
man.
Zuby. This is amazing. Oh,
Yeah,
I love it.
I've written so much, man. I've written so
Yeah,
many verses that like picking out a lyric is tough. It's
yeah,
really tough. I have favorite verses and songs, but like a bar is hard.
yeah. It's like choosing your babies. Which one do you love the most, kind of thing. You know, it's really
Yeah,
hard to
and you've got
choose.
hundreds of babies.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
let me segue into this because I've heard you say this multiple times. You want 50 babies. Why?
Okay, I don't think 50 is
I know.
50 is actually going to be realistic. I like upping it whenever someone tells me that the world is overpopulated. Um, well, I think I'm from a very big family. I'm from a big family. I'm one of five kids, and my dad is one of 11. My mom's also got a big family, so I like the big family dynamic. It's what I've grown up in, and I think actually there's so many advantages to it that people don't really
Hmm,
actually think about, like having such a big and close network of people
hmm.
of different generations is actually has a lot. It's an amazing support mechanism in many ways. Um, but also, I think that I think that good people should have more kids, man.
Agreed.
You know, I think that people who are capable and smart and have their heads screwed on and have solid values and principles should reproduce more.
Hmm.
And I think the the opposite might be happening.
Yes, that's what I'm finding.
Right?
The
I think
smarter,
the
intelligent people who have
yeah.
values, they're like, okay, well, you know, maybe I don't want to have that many kids.
Yeah, they're too sensible, right? They're like,
Hmm.
no, just just two, and I'm like, man, like be fruitful and multiply. Maybe there's also a religious angle as well. I am a Christian, and I think that being fruitful and multiplying is one of is one of God's commands, and it's something that if people can do, should do.
Hmm.
Um, so those are my thoughts. Of course, I say this as someone, I don't have any children yet.
Hmm.
I have 9 nieces and nephews, so I'm kind of a super uncle. But these this might change. But I like the big family dynamic, and I generally think that the world needs more good people in it. And I think that in general, good parents raise good children who go on to affect the world in beautiful ways. I imagine, my parents are both very accomplished people, but I imagine that if you ask them what they're most proud of, without hesitation, they would say it's their family. It's their 5 children, 9 grandchildren so far, who have all gone on to be successful in different fields and impact the world in different positive ways, carry on their name, leave a legacy. And I think that's a beautiful chain. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. Like what we do here is, I'm very proud of what I've accomplished. We've talked about some of the things I've done. I'm very happy with what I've done and the legacy that I'm building. Um, but I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna have to, like, the legacy's not done, right? Like
Hmm.
I gotta do my biological role as well and pass that on, and these things that I've learned, and this mentality, and even my genetics themselves, like, cool, that needs to carry on, that should carry on into the world.
Yeah.
And that's something that we should do.
When do you feel that time is for you?
Ooh, Dan's going hard, man. uh,
I'm trying to get you a wife right now,
Yeah,
Zuby. All right,
yeah, yeah.
you got a
Dude,
lot of suitors or suitettes.
I do. Honestly, I do. Which is a whole other thing. In the next couple of years, man.
Mm,
Next couple of years, like I'll be honest. I'm at the first. This is the first time in my life, like maybe for the past like 1 year or 2 years, where I've been like, you know what, I'm ready for that.
Mm.
5 years ago, 6 years ago, it just like scared me. Right. Like the whole concept just scared me, but now it like excites me. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not doing that tomorrow, but I'm excited for that. And I know I can do that and I'm capable. Whereas I didn't feel that way before. Some of it is also related to my chosen career path, I think.
Mm.
I think had I just stayed in the corporate world, I think I would have reached that stage earlier because I would have had the financial security and just generally know what I'm doing in my life. But because I ventured off on this weird and crazy path, it's really only in the last few years that even from a financial and a career perspective that I've felt like, okay, cool. Like I'm stable. I've reached like a level of success where before I was just looking after me, right? Like,
Mm.
okay, I can keep myself afloat, but not other people. Whereas now I'm like, okay, cool. Like I've hit a certain level. And I think as a, that's, a man or a woman, but I think certainly as a man, you want to feel confident and comfortable that you
Yeah.
can provide and have reached a level in your career and your finances and all of that before you want to start being fruitful and multiplying.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Agreed.
thank God I've reached that stage now. So
Yeah. I felt that when I was like, unfortunately, I felt that, not unfortunately, but everything has its own timing. I felt that
sure.
when I was like maybe 36.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was 38, I got married. By the time I was 40, I had my first child. And yeah, it's just like you got to wait until you actually feel like you're set and you have a foundation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of different ways to do these things, but I think as a man especially,
Yeah.
it's like so much of that also depends on like what you choose to do. Like if you pick a weird entrepreneurial creative path, then you're likely to not feel that level of confidence or even to objectively have it until later than if you choose something that's more career, sorry, more traditional and kind of just has like a clear career progression where you can be like, okay, in
Yeah.
3 years I'll be here and then I'll be here and I'll be here and you even know like roughly how much you'll be earning
Mm.
and all of that. With me, it's very much been like, I'll tell you another thing that's interesting. Uh, 2020, no, let me 2019. Wait, no, 2020. I am right. 2020 was the first year that I earned more doing what I do now than I used to in my old career.
Mm.
So from 2011 to 2020, I took a pay cut. So to give
Wow.
people some reference, I was making more in 2011 at my corporate job than I was making in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and then 2020. The tables turned and those seeds really started to blossom.
Wow.
And I've started to feel like, hey, okay, I'm on this trajectory to success.
Yeah. You remind me of the stone cutter.
Mm.
Just keeps on banging. Just keeps on banging. What were your parents
Yeah.
saying actually? Man, like, because your dad, you said he was super accomplished.
Yeah, he's a medical doctor.
Yeah. So, what was he saying and thinking to you, or saying to you because you chose this path that was not traditional? It was not
Hmm.
professional.
Yeah, God, honestly, God bless my parents, man. Thank you. Especially because, as you're Asian, I'm African, so
Yes.
Asian and African
That's why
parents
I'm
are
asking
are
him.
known
Like,
for.
like they
Yes,
talk some smack.
yeah. No, my parents and my family in general have been incredibly, incredibly supportive, incredibly supportive. Um, and I mean to the point that my mom went out for a walk yesterday, and she came back and I saw she was wearing one of my hoodies. Like my parents wear my merch all the
uh,
time, and every album I release, my mom buys the first copy and gets me to sign it. In fact, if you can see behind me, there's that little cabinet there.
yeah.
It's going to be blurry. That's my second album right there. All of my albums are in that cabinet. That's all nine of my releases are in that cabinet. So my parents are very, very supportive. They've been coming to my shows since I was in university.
Wow.
If there's a gig that they can get to, they'll come. They've helped me with my merchandise. Here, I'll disclose another thing. When I'm traveling around the world and people are like, hey, who's shipping your merchandise? Sometimes my mom ships my merch for me if I'm on the road. So all sorts of ways my parents are extremely supportive, and they have been, and emotionally, and they believe me. Sometimes they'd get frustrated because they wanted, I think it all took longer than they thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still at the early stages of my career in terms of what I'm going to do in this world. But they, I was very much prepared that, okay, this grind, this is going to take like 10 plus years. Like I was mentally prepared for that. But I think other people think, especially in the world of music, because it can seem like people just kind of come out of nowhere and they blow up and, all of this. And I was like, man, no, like I'm willing to put in 10, 15, 20 years to really grow this thing. And so I think sometimes, especially like, let's say, I don't know, 2016, 2017, after I'd been at it for like 5+ years full time. And they're like, man, like, why is it so hard? Like, wow, and they'd hear other artists on the radio and they'd be like, man, Zuby's music is better than this. Like, why won't they play Zuby's music? Why won't they play our son's music and whatever? And I was like, yeah, that's just kind of how the music industry is. Like, it's this and this, but don't worry, like the success will come. And they're super proud of where they see things at now. And when they see me, giving speeches in the USA, or, appearing on these big podcasts, or, I was just on TV last night here in the UK, and they love seeing that. They love telling their friends and say, that's our son, he's there on TV, he's doing this, he's doing that. And so that's nice, man. It's nice. And given how hard it is to do something like what I do, and how weird and different and unique it is, it's really been a blessing for me to not have to also fight my family on this, right? Like, it's enough having to like go to war with the world every day in some way and like, have all this, ups and downs and criticism and difficulties, but to be having to fight your family on top of that would suck. So I'm grateful that they support me. My brothers support me. My sisters support me. We've got a very close, loving family, which is the biggest blessing. And yeah, here we are now. So nothing but love and gratitude.
Shout out to Zuby's parents. Shout out to your parents, man.
Yeah, I need to get them on my podcast.
Yes.
I've been saying for a while I'm going to do it, but I want to do it like, I want to record it live and, like have like a proper camera set up and do it. I don't want to just like Zoom it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to do that because I think that would interest a lot of people.
Well, I mean, your family for one, your brothers, sisters, but also your nieces, nephews, and your eventual children. So that's gonna be huge. So you can just like drop on the podcast, be like, "Here, this is grandma and grandma's life." It's gonna be super dope. Yeah. All right, I have one last question for you. So you are an incredibly opinionated man on Twitter. I think I'm saying that. I don't say that lightly. So what is actually it's probably the second last question, but what is like something that you've changed your mind on in the past 5 years?
In the past 5 years.
Or I could say 2. Whatever timeline you want to give it. Yeah.
In the past 2 years. I feel like I changed my mind. I feel like I change my mind in small ways every single day. I'm trying to think of like something substantial. I think, man, I want to do something positive, but the most obvious thing is actually quite negative.
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think after the past couple years, the whole pandemic response situation in many different countries have, I think it's darkened my view on people.
Mm,
unfortunately.
mm,
Um, because it's the biggest lesson I learned. All right, this is kind of deep and dark.
yeah.
You know, as someone who looks at history and has studied various events in history and things like that, I've, I think we all often do it, and you wonder how certain things happened, right? You wonder why, like, why didn't anyone stop this? Like, why did people just go along with this thing? Like, how did it get this far, kind of thing, right? Like, why didn't someone speak up? Right? Why didn't someone stand up and stop this thing? Right? You could be talking about slavery. You could be talking about, of course, the Holocaust. You could be talking about the Holodomor. You could be talking about various genocides. You could be talking about also, there's even in the past 100 years, lots of bad things have happened. And you're like, man, why didn't anyone like stand up and say, yo, like this is wrong, like stop this thing? Why did it go on for so long? Why did so many people go on with it? Right? How did, like, yeah, Hitler existing is one thing, but like, why did the Germans go with it?
Mm,
Right? Like, German people aren't crazy. I've been to Germany many times. Like, lovely people, nice people, whatever. So like, how could you do this? Like, why did you do this? And I don't ask those questions anymore.
mm,
I understand it psychologically. I understand it, and that's heavy. So I don't know if that's like a mind change per se, but it's
mm,
made it very clear to me that most people are not evil or bad, but they will they're not courageous enough to stand up to something that they know to be wrong. And you can get people to go along with all types of absurdities. It doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be good. It doesn't need to be helpful. It doesn't need to be right. It could even harm people. But with the right propaganda, with the right messengers, with the right ways to control the communication or instill fear into people, or to, make people feel like their jobs are at risk, or, they've got something to lose by, you can instill fear very quickly in a large percentage of the population. And it's not people being evil that make evil succeed. It's people being apathetic, or even being somewhat cooperative with it and not taking a stand. Um, Obviously, I'm not saying that what's happened in the past 2 years is anything close to the level of a genocide, or, some of the worst events that have happened in history. But from a psychological perspective, and from a fear perspective, and from a mass psychosis perspective, you can see how these things can happen, and how quickly people can kind of fall into these types of traps, and turn family, bro, I mean,
mm,
millions of people in the past 2 years lost relationships with friends and family because they didn't want to take a jab, or because they didn't support mask mandates, or they didn't support lockdown. Like, I've heard so many horror stories, so much fallout of the past 2 years. There's couples that got divorced
mm,
over a freaking injection, right? There's families that, to this day, Dan, they haven't seen each other since the whole thing started, because of the, like, that's nuts. I mean, that's friends and family. If people are willing to do that, right? There's people who snitch, like in the height of all this stuff, in the height of the
mm,
lockdowns. There's people who snitched on their own spouse for going out and walking the dog. They called the police and said, "Hey, my husband is violating the lockdown." Man, like, these are the people who would have been the informers. This, right? Like, so it's that side is really dark. So I think it's a shame that that's the thing that I love human beings. I love humanity. Um, but that's just been like, there was a point where, things are bright, but things are brighter now as we record this.
mhm,
But I mean, if I rewind to 1 year ago, and you remember the rhetoric that certain people were spitting out there, and, at like legitimately promoting discrimination and segregation, or saying that people should be denied medical care if they don't do certain things, or, it got really, really nasty. It got really, really nasty. And that was very disheartening to me, because I think, despite already having my skepticisms, I had more faith in humanity than that.
Hmm.
And it really slid into, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I learned is that humans have not changed at all. We've just got better technology. And people might think we've learned from history, but when push comes to shove and you put fear, you instill fear in a population, then they start operating in a certain way. Stuff can get very tribal, very hostile very quickly. People will turn on each other, including their loved ones. And that's disappointing.
Yeah, but we're still. Something I will say is that we're still early as a human race right now. Very
Yeah.
early where we are right now. So some things take time to develop. And one of the things that I really respect about you, we talked about the fact that you are opinionated, but one of the things that you are is honest. You are very
Mm-hmm.
raw. You are very honest, and you are actually doing this in the face of possible sometimes like deplatforming at some
Mm.
points depending on what you say on Twitter. But you have you basically have the confidence, and yeah, exactly, you basically have the balls to say it and
Yeah.
to say things that people are not willing to say, and that's something
Mm.
I freaking respect about you. Now, to take this in another way, I want to ask you a final question, which is, what kind of impact would you like to have on the world when it's all said and done?
Hmm. I want millions of people to be very sad when I die.
Yeah.
Um, my goal from the beginning, and the reason I even got into music and wanted to pursue it full time, was because I wanted to make a positive impact on people. I wanted to use my words to inspire and motivate as many people as possible around the world. I thought that I was just going to do that with my music when it all started, and that's really that's maintained my goal with everything I do, from my podcast, my public speaking, social media presence, of course, my music, my fitness stuff. I want to inspire, encourage, and motivate people through my words and actions. That's really that's what drives me the most. So I feel like it's my ethical duty and my compulsion, and like my name means God's decision, and I don't take that lightly.
Hmm.
I don't take that lightly. I think that I've been put on this world with a certain purpose. I've been given a certain personality and certain very unique skill set that you know. I mean, I don't think anybody does what I do in the combination that I do it. There's no one else who, there's other people who do bits of it,
Yeah.
but like the combination of stuff, and then like having like this very unique background and all this stuff, I'm like, man, like there's a reason for all that, so I can't squander it. I've done a lot. I've inspired. I've helped a lot of people, but there's so much more that I can do. And what better thing can I do with my life than help other people in different ways, whether that's helping them lose weight, or it's making a song that makes them push out one more rep in the gym, or to uplift them when they're feeling down, or it's to teach them something, or it's to entertain them, or it's to make them laugh, or it's to make them change their mind on a certain issue or think more critically. Whatever it is, however I can do it, that's that's simply what I'm about, man.
Yeah.
That's simply what I'm about. And I could die tomorrow, and I'd be very happy with what I've achieved and what I've accomplished in that regard. Lord willing, I've got many, many more decades to go, and I'm excited, man. Like I'm so excited about where everything goes in the future. The sky's the limit. I don't think there is any limit. I've got a lot of people on my side. Got a lot of great people on my side and supporting me. I've got a wonderful family, thank God. I feel like I'm walking with God. God is with me, and man, I'm always pumped. I'm always positive. I don't really. I get tired sometimes, but not for very long, because I'm just like, it's just burning, man. Like it's been burning for over a decade. Just like, all right, man. Like every
Yeah.
day, you know, reach that many more people. Put in the work, do it. You'll have your ups and downs, but as long as things are trending in that right direction, I'm happy.
And I feel like you've done it while upholding your integrity and upholding
Absolutely,
the
man.
integrity of the people that follow you and listen to you.
Yeah.
So, Zuby, where can people find you, and what are some of the next projects that you may be working on right now?
Yeah, sure thing, man. I'll announce one. I've got my first children's book coming out in July.
Yeah.
It's called The Candy Calamity. It's a collaboration with Brave Books. So that's going to be out in July. So stay on the lookout for that. Of course, my a book for adults, Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody, is available on my website, teamzuby.com. You can also get my music and merchandise there. And you can find me on all social media at Zuby Music. That is Zuby Music. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all at the same handle, Zuby Music.
Awesome. And dude, this has been a pleasure. I I've learned things about you that I didn't think that were even, yeah. I actually, it's this has been one of like the most enjoyable conversations, and it really does speak to the kind of guy that you are. I love the reps. I love the fact that you've actually been putting in the work, and now the fruits of your labor are starting to come up. And again, I just think you're getting started right now. I literally think you're just getting started. So,
Thank you,
dude,
bro. I appreciate it, man.
yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate you. All right, thanks for dropping by, brother.